Joining me now, Charles Krauthammer. He's a Fox News contributor and author of the book Things That Matter, now out in paperback. Charles, good to see you. The stats are just deeply disturbing, and the question is why? Why are we seeing this spike?
Well, I'm sure there's not just a single cause, but I do believe far more in Comey than I do in the White House spinners as to whether the Ferguson effect has contributed. I think it's sort of almost undeniable. First of all, the logic of it, as Comey has outlined it. Obviously, if you're a police officer, you're called into Baltimore for an incident into an inner city, you're surrounded by crowds taunting you, holding up the cell phones. Are you going to want to act aggressively to try to put down whatever's going on? Or would you simply shy away? I think the evidence is that a cop, out of sort of logic and self-preservation, is going to shy away, particularly after having seen how, when these incidents happen, the White House and the Department of Justice have in the past lined up with those who blame the police, as, for example, in Ferguson. So that's the logic of it. You have the anecdotal evidence. Cops will tell you, of course, there's this element of I'm going to be tagged, I'm going to be filmed, and I'm going to be ruined. And then you have the statistics, which seem to back it up. Baltimore is the most extreme example. That's where they have the highest homicide rate ever. And that's a city where the sense of authority has been dissipated. And when you lose that sense of authority, somebody in charge, this is what you get.
You know, the administration says there's no evidence. There is no evidence tying this spike in the murder rate to anything they have done in cracking down on police departments. And they say, as a second point, those police departments they've cracked down upon deserved it.
Well, the deserving it is a separate argument. But when they say there is no evidence, what they are implying is that it is a complete coincidence that you get these kind of spikes in cities, again, like Baltimore, where we know we had the mayor telling the police to stand down in the middle of a riot. And that, I think, has an effect on first on the bad guys in the city who want to do damage, a sense that there's nobody in charge, and second, on the thin blue line. Why do you want to risk everything? Your life is already on the line every morning that you go to work. Do you want to make it even more dangerous and have less protection behind you, political protection, legal protection behind you, by going into situations that you could simply just ignore or back away from?
You know, Charles, to what extent is this attributable to the demonization? There's no question that in some instances, cops have done bad things. And including, we saw that in Chicago with that videotape and so on. And, you know, there's been misbehavior in some instances. But some are so determined to demonize cops as a group. And then even when those cops are exonerated, as we saw with Officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri, refuse to admit it. I am reminded of this exchange that I had with Al Sharpton, who condemned Officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, and even when the DOJ had exonerated him, refused to come to terms with it. Watch this. Let me take you back to Ferguson, Missouri, and the case there against Officer Darren Wilson. They said there was no evidence to disprove his statement that he was in fear of his life.
Well, first of all, if the DOJ said that, then that is contrary to what eyewitnesses. So if I say what I believe to be the case based on talking to several witnesses, I should apologize for what?
This is your opportunity to come out and say, that stuff I said about him not being in fear for his life, that was wrong.
No, I can say the DOJ said it was wrong.
So he wouldn't take responsibility.
Well, he never does. This is the guy who defended Tawana Brawley, who was part of the hoax in which a completely innocent white detective or police officer was charged with terrible crimes against this young woman. It was a complete hoax. He knew it. And then when he got sued, he said, "Sue me if you think I wasn't telling the truth." He got sued, and apparently he never paid the fine or whatever he was supposed to do. He's got a long history of this. And the fact that he is sort of the unofficial spokesman for African Americans in the Obama years speaks loudly to how they have tended to put their thumb on the scale of people like him who will jump to a conclusion for which in all of the reports, I think, on Ferguson, those supposed eyewitness reports turned out to be false.
Totally uncredible.
Either deliberately so, or the same way that you get in many, many cases, people mistake or misremember what they saw.
And which is fine. I mean, then you learn new information and you adjust your opinion.
Right.
But in his case, he would not, and it has an effect because he has a very big microphone. Charles, it's great to see you as always, sir.
My pleasure.